So I'm going to start with, this will work, oh my gosh, I hope so. I'm going to start with an interview, short interview with Marty Neumeyer. Does anybody know who he is? He is kind of famous in the branding world. He's got a really robust resume doing brand work for Apple, HP, Hewlett Packard, Microsoft. He's kind of the brand guru in Silicon Valley. And he wrote a famous book called The Brand Gap, and subsequent books, The Brand Flip and others. And I think he does a really great job in this short video of articulating what is a brand.
The term branding, people use it interchangeably with logo design, identity design, or even sometimes typography. And maybe we need to set the record straight. I know you're the best person to tell us. What is branding, Marty?
Yeah, so let's start with what branding isn't.
Okay.
It's because it's not a lot of things people say it is. It's not a logo.
Okay.
A logo is a very useful tool for a business, but it's not the brand. It's a symbol for the brand. A brand is not a product. So when people talk about this brand, buying this brand or that brand, they're really talking about buying one product or another product. The brand is not that. People say the brand is a promise the company makes to customers, and there's some truth in that.
Yep.
I mean, it does end up acting as a promise, but that's not what it is either. Advertising people like to say, well, it's the sum of all the impressions that a company makes on an audience.
Yeah.
Well, if you're trying to sell a lot of impressions, I can see where that might be useful to you. But from a business's point of view, why do they want that? Right. So, and how does that help
Self-serving definition
creative
there.
people understand what they're doing?
Right.
So none of those things are really what branding is. A brand is a result. It's a customer's gut feeling about a product, a service, or a company. It ends up in their heads, in their hearts. They take whatever raw materials you throw at them and they make something out of it. But they're making it, they're creating it. And so in a sense, when you create a brand, you're not creating one brand, you're creating millions of brands, like however many customers or people in your audience.
Oh.
Each one has a different brand of you. So a brand is like a reputation, right? So it's your business reputation, and everyone's going to be a little bit different about what that reputation is. And that's okay, as long as you've got it corralled mostly where you want it and that it's beneficial to the company. So we tend to look at companies and designers tend to look at branding as, from our point of view, like this is something we're doing. We're telling a story. We're making a claim. We're making a pitch. And that's what we do, but that's not what a brand is. A brand is the result of that. And if you don't start there, you don't know what you're doing. You actually don't know what you think you know what you're doing, but you don't. So from a designer's point of view, I mean, I always tended to be this way. It's like, it was my gut feeling, right, about whether this is going to work or not. And then I would sell it as hard as I could to get the client to sign off on it. From the client's point of view, they're going, well, it's a checklist. I got the logo, I got the tagline, I got the ad campaign, click, check, and they think they're done.
Right.
None of that's right. What's right is what happens in people's heads. Like, what have we achieved? Like, what's the reputation that we've created through the products we're putting out, like the design of the products, the messaging we're putting out, the look and feel of them, our culture, how does that affect people? How our employees behave, how is that affecting our reputation? All that stuff counts. So it's a big world, and it actually takes in almost all of business. Not so much finance, but finance is involved too, because finance has to greenlight all these things. But almost everybody in a company is, affecting the brand, doing something with the brand, doing it for the brand, or hurting the brand. So you got to think of it that way.
Whew. I didn't want to say one word because that was perfect. This is unscripted. Marty's just talking from decades of experience and writing and articulating this. It's very clear to me.
So what do you think? Was any of that new information? Yeah? Say more.
The video was great, a good reminder that the brand isn't necessarily something just outside of us. We all represent it, and we all have a responsibility to live up to a certain standard. And I know the hard part is communicating that standard, and we talk about enforcing it and portraying it, outward. And I think this discussion is going to be hugely important, as we saw at the statewide conference, where what were the percentage of new people that are coming on board?
Yeah,
They're
a lot.
under 5. It's huge.
Yeah.
So this is just so timely, and thanks for sharing that clip. I hope the whole staff for ANR can see it. Yeah, and really take it to heart.
All right, so experts emphasize these key elements for an effective brand. All leading brands prioritize identity, because that allows you to grow recognition. The positioning, which is all of your messaging and brand values and all that good stuff, and you demonstrate values that resonate with your clients, and consistency. So my question to you is UC ANR effective in any of these areas?
I would say if I had to pick one of those three that UC ANR is doing well at, it's the brand positioning, demonstrating values that resonate with clients. I do believe we all do an excellent, top-notch job at that, but it's putting the cart before the horse, because if the external audience and individuals and businesses out there don't even know what UC ANR stands for, we have to start with brand identity and then make sure it's consistent, which we are absolutely not doing.
The good news is we have a really solid, we have a value proposition that is people can relate to and people appreciate. Once they've worked with our brand, they have that connection with our positioning, right? Because we're a service organization. But as Mary so eloquently pointed out, we have a lot of work to do in the other areas. All right, so just a little more on the building blocks of an effective brand, and this is going to bug me. So a clear mission that resonates with audiences and is well executed. We're doing okay in that area. Core messaging reinforced across the organization. Got a lot of work to do there. Simple, memorable visual identity. And then consistent communication. We've already covered that. And I just want to revisit and re-emphasize the idea that a brand is not a logo. I cannot tell you how many people come to me and say, I have this new initiative, I need a logo. Or I'm making this report, I need a logo. I'm in an affinity group, I need a logo. And really anything that's internal or an initiative or a program, the brand is UC ANR. The brand does not come up with your own doodad and attach it to your report, right? So I just want, if you leave with nothing else today, leave with the idea that a brand is not a logo. A brand is the client and customer's experience of what you are offering them. And if you create yet another logo for the ANR logo suit, you're doing nothing to advance our brand awareness, right? So that's what Marty says, the gut feeling, and then Jeff Bezos, I like his definition as well. He says your brand is what people say when you leave the room. And then you think about your own personal brand too, not just the ANR brand. All right, so now we're going to dive into why brand unity is important. And I know you have this foundation already or you wouldn't be here, but it's really key to projecting your vision to your customers. And so as this marketing group points out, we have to find our voice, refine our message, have the same visual style. All of that results in a consistent experience for our clients, and they will reward us for that. They will, participate in other ANR programs and, consider funding us. And, the brand experience is key. And I picked these three brands because I think Rolex, Nike, and Disney do a good job with brand unity. I want to, kind of illustrate a little bit more. So the Rolex brand, what do you think of when you think of Rolex? Well, luxury, pleasure. It is absolutely, the brand experience of Rolex is absolutely that. It's luxurious. It's fine metals. They make their products look like art, and it looks really exclusive, right? And then how about Nike? What do you think of for Nike?
Sweatshops.
Sweatshop. Performance. Yeah. Their brand unity is all about inspiring athletes. Inspiration. They showcase the athletes as inspirational heroes, and not just famous athletes, right? Any athlete. So they're about energy and inspiration, and the brand experience is like that. I mean, every time you interact with Nike or see a Nike ad, that's what they're offering you. And then Disney, of course, what do you think of for Disney? Family, fun, imagination, entertainment. Absolutely, and you can see that it's not only the Disney Channel conveys that energy and creativity and family and fun, but the Disney, their brand family. So Disneyland, it's not exactly the same as the parent brand, but it's a very coherent sub-brand. Lack of brand unity, on the other hand, gets in the way of brand equity and people being aware of us. So this was the charge that I gave to the consulting firm. I said, the main logo is off the table. We're not changing that, but what can you help us with? What recommendations would you make to help us? And not just in terms of visual. I mean, they did a 90-page report with like 13 recommendations. So, and we'll talk more about that later. But this is just such a great visual illustration of our challenge, right? And not only do we have the incoherent brand family, we also have a lack of compliance across the organization. If you were at the statewide conference, somebody is it staff assembly? They gave out hundreds of bags with the wrong logo. They were trying to make me quit or something. I don't know.
It might have been old, actually.
No, I know, and there's that, and I get it, but
They were printed 5 years ago.
But what a missed opportunity. I would have given you bags. And I'm not trying to, single out, because it's across the organization. It is not just staff assembly, people are so attached to the hats that have the old logo, and it's like, we gave you a new hat. Could you please get rid of the old hat or just wear it at home,
So I wanted to make a point that if, over 50% of UC ANR right now is under 5 years, I, at 4 years, don't know what the old logo and the new logo look like. So when you're talking about a whole logo, I don't know what you're talking about. And so I don't know what we're supposed to be using and then what we used before. And I think that might ring true for 50% of us. We haven't been around long enough to know
That's where
that there's one right, one wrong.
And point well taken. And we do have resources to help with that I'll be covering a little bit later. But yeah, and I understand. I mean, it's confusing. We're a diffuse organization. We're all over the state. There's nobody really hammering these messages and helping at the branding level within every unit. So of course there's going to be brand confusion, and this is a foundational document that especially important for new people. So I'm glad there's folks from HR here thinking about how they integrate some of this information into onboarding material, for example. Because I worked at UC Davis for 7 years before I came here, and I still, even with my understanding of the UC system and UC Davis, I still had such a big learning curve to understand the architecture of this brand, right? It's very complicated. Because we're under OP, so we have University of California writ large as our brand. Then we have UC ANR, which is the true parent brand. Then we have Cooperative Extension, which is another parent brand of sorts. And then we have all the programmatic brands. And then we have the layer of complexity with the recs. And we have volunteers that are engaged, thousands of volunteers that are engaged that are also representatives of our brand. Yeah, question.
Yeah.
Everything flows from Cooperative Extension too, right? Like all the programs are part of Cooperative Extension in some capacity, right? And when we think about our peer institutions around the country, they brand themselves as Extension, and everything under that is related to Extension. So it's already complicated in that way. It's not gonna make sense to anyone if you say, like, and we're also part of the Office of the President. It's like, what? So, anyway, and this is not set in stone. Like, if over time we decide that this architecture isn't accurate, we change it. But this is our understanding of the architecture at the current moment. Go ahead, Scott. So anyway, yeah, the role of the parent brand, and the slide after this is an opportunity for people to share how they describe ANR. But just to kind of ground us in what is the role of ANR, as our parent brand. We can use it to establish relationships and collaborations with UC researchers, other programs, and other cooperative extensions. It is the umbrella that reveals the depth of programming that we have. It is important for funding. We have brand awareness with funding organizations, and they, give us money. As we recently learned, legislators have become more aware of us as a separate brand. Support us. We got a huge increase in funding thanks to Senator Laird, who definitely understands the ANR brand, even though he doesn't always call us the right things. Yeah. He calls us, but he understands our brand value, right? And then there's all the administrative support that comes from central aspects of ANR. We have the UC is in our name, UC Agriculture and Natural Resources. So explaining the parent brand. This is where I wanted to hear how people are currently doing this, and then show you a couple of examples from the communications toolkit. So you've heard a couple of them already. Does anyone else want to share how they explain how ANR fits with? Go ahead.
I simply say with the agricultural extension of the University of California. I mean, usually my audience, like you said, it's audience particular, my audience, is an agricultural audience, so they know what that is. But if you get too much into it, people just go, yeah. So
I say, I work for UC Agriculture and Natural Resources, and our job is to take the research of the university and bring it out to the local community to make people's lives better. And then we do that with a ton of different programs and a ton of different research. Try to keep it as simple as possible. What's hard is when you're trying to introduce the program and ANR at the same time.
So oftentimes I say that I work for UC Cooperative Extension, not UC ANR. And the reason being is that people, my counties recognize UC Cooperative Extension, that name, they recognize UC IPM, they recognize what that is. UC ANR, they have no idea. When you say it, they're like, they're confused. So, how do you explain to them, well, I used to work for UC Cooperative Extension, which is the same thing as UC ANR or under UC ANR, or it's confusing for me. To try to explain that one.
So it is confusing, but we need to do it. We need to do it, because if you don't ever do it, then they're never going to know what ANR is. Right?
But I'm still standing here not sure what the difference between UC Cooperative Extension and UC ANR is. Mm-hmm. So if I don't understand, how am I supposed to then tell people and explain to people how it's different when I don't know how it's different at all?
It's the overarching organization, administrative organization. I know, it's not great, it's not pretty. We know that. That's why we're all here, right?
Yeah.
But my point is, we're never going to grow awareness of UC ANR writ large if we leave it out of that conversation. And it'll be confusing, but eventually people will start to remember, oh yeah, she mentioned UC ANR, oh yeah, UC ANR.
I think for me, the question that I get the most, and I think this also supports what was just said, about the difference between ANR and then cooperative extension. And then I know a lot of the work that we're doing takes place in the communities of cooperative extension, and those closest to us know what cooperative extension is. But anytime I brought up cooperative extension, within my own circle, people don't know what cooperative extension is, at least in my experience when talking about it, or ANR. But then also, I have this other level because I have the statewide program, which I think Master Gardener program case has some awareness in the gardening community. So We always start off with, the UC Master Gardener Program is a statewide program under UC Agriculture and Natural Resources, and then we describe what we do, but we don't really go into detail about what ANR is. Instead, it's about what our statewide program does, but trying to continue to reinforce that it's under, or a statewide program under this bigger organization. Now, I have a hard time even being able to connect cooperative extension to that, even though our programs are based out of cooperative extension. It just seems a lot to try to tie to both. So, we're located in cooperative extension offices under, I don't know, it's a lot. So then it starts to get people, you lose people after a few seconds. So I think that's the challenge. And then county offices wanting to brand UCCE with the Master Gardener Program, and how do you balance that between just UC, because that has the recognition, so it's where do you leverage people understanding versus wanting to improve, people's perception of where they're at.
Yeah, I think we're back to audience specific, right?
Yeah.
Because if whoever you're talking to could benefit from knowing that you're within ANR, you think that you add value to the brand, you do. But if you're just going to lose them by bringing ANR in, and I think it's perfectly fine that you don't get into any details about ANR because we're very complex, but you're at least associating it in your mind. That's all we want. We just want people to start understanding that the UC ANR brand is made up of many, many, powerful programs that impact the lives of culture. Anything else? So I just threw a couple examples up here from the toolkit. I work for UC Ag Natural Resources, a statewide network of programs and research centers that connects UC research with people performing. Probably familiar with some of our programs like 4-H, Starter, and if you're a farmer or rancher, you probably know about cooperative extension. That's kind of long-winded, but at least it gets, and this is back to audience specific, right? You would know who you're talking to, so you probably wouldn't put the last part on if it's not a farmer or rancher. I'm a 4-H volunteer in Santa Barbara County. That's UC Agriculture and Natural Resources, a statewide organization that brings UC research out to local communities to help solve problems and improve lives. So at least you get the ANR in there. And you're not there to talk about ANR, you're there to talk about 4-H, but, providing that introduction to the master brand. Anyway, before we move on, we're going to move on to brand personality, but before we do that, I forgot to share this really great example from Cynthia Kintai of why brand unity is important. She used to be the brand manager before I joined. And she told me that years ago, Nan McAvoy, does anybody know who that is? Nan McAvoy? She's a young heiress. She bought some property in Sonoma County for a weekend home, and she found out that she had to keep the land agricultural. There was a requirement to keep the land agricultural. So she decided to plant all the trees and make olive oil, and she brought over a bunch of trees from Italy and turned to her local farm advisor, Paul Dawson, for help. And so now there's McAvoy Ranch olive oil, right, which you may be familiar with. It's a premium European olive oil that's grown in California. What a lot of people don't know is that Nan was so happy with the support that she got from her advisor that she was one of the founders who gave the gift to start wait for it, UC Davis Olive Center. Right? So Olive Institute, even this person who was hand in glove with her advisor thought that he was with UC Davis. Brand unity is important. We have to continually tell people that we are not UC Davis. I almost want to make a t-shirt. He did correct. 2 t-shirts I want. One that says, no, we are not UC Davis. Another one that says, no, we don't need a logo.
A major issue that we have that's foundational to where we are today is historical. When I came to UC, I was at UC Davis in 2008 when I was told that I was going to be working for a center that would usurp the Master Gardener program when ANR rolled over into Davis. Mm-hmm. When I came to ANR 10 years ago, our URL for the Master Gardener program was UC Davis. A lot of our logo identity was associated with UC Davis. I had a UC Davis email address. So I think when like the UC Davis Olive Oil Center was established, even, Paul Boston, and to the credit of our academics, I think a lot of us were being told that our association was through UC Davis. So our identity has been grounded in that for years. And, in the 10 years Melissa's been with the Master Gardener program, she's aligned us under UC ANR. Everyone is using our poppy logo associated with UC ANR, and that's the identity that we have adopted. But it's taken 10 years to get to that point. And I think like the vestige of this historical thing is that we've lost out on a ton of opportunities that have ended up going over to UC Davis. One of your examples out there was UC Nursery and Floriculture Alliance, which was funded through UC ANR but established at UC Davis. So our identity is all over the place because historically we really haven't been grounded in ANR.
Linda, that Olive Institute story, the advisor never corrected her and renamed it.
And I'm sure there were UC Davis people involved as well, but it's just ironic that she's all gung ho to give money to UC Davis. All right, there's one more.
Just nationally, the extension programs are connected to universities, to one university, right? It goes to all states. So that's another unique facet of what we're doing here.
So for the IPM program, you can get to the URLs ipm.ucanr.edu or ipm.ucdavis.edu takes you to the same page. Oftentimes when I do presentations, I give out the UC Davis one because it's easier to remember. Because people are familiar with UC Davis, they're not familiar with UC ANR. Now, maybe I need to change that in the future. But there's the reason being when both go to the same page, for me, I want my clientele to get there. And that's more important to me, that the clientele actually can remember to get there. Now, I know putting a little bit of effort, maybe that can change. Maybe if I keep putting out UC ANR,
Or give them both.
At
least, as a compromise, right? Just put them both.
that's a good idea. But it's the same kind of situation where you're just like, well, I want them to get there, I want them to remember it. At the same time, maybe I should be using UC ANR, not UC.
When you Google IPM, does the ANR site or the UC Davis site get higher search rankings?
I can let you know right now.
Yeah, because that'd be interesting to know, because if the ANR one is the first one, then do the ANR address and just put it on the list, right? So they're gonna, if they forget it, then they'll Google it and they'll guess it anyway. You know what I mean? So we're gonna switch gears and go to brand personality. Distill the personality of the UC ANR brand. Here's some cheesy graphic on your tables. Just take a moment individually, jot down a couple of 1 to 3 keywords that represent to you what the brand personality of UC ANR is.
You're not the personality of the logo, the personality of our
Brand.
Yes.
Because the brand is known.
That's right.
All right, let's come back together. And we're going to start in the back here. And if you would share the terms that came out of your discussion. What is our brand personality?
We settled on integrity, expertise, and trust.
I would change them into adjectives actually but we get the gist. Anyway, you guys next.
One we could all agree on was educational.
To that list, I would add science-based and local issues.
So it said engaged with communities and problem solving.
We wrote trusted, academic, and research-based.
So to not repeat what's up there, a few of the words we agreed on
is research, if that's not up there. Research, extension.
How's that a brand personality trait? Can you make it into a
Community?
personality
Does community
trait?
work? And then we don't really have a word, but a strong sentiment was continuity representing past, present, and future. So just meaning, we were born in the 1800s and we're not going away. So we didn't come up with time. Okay.
You're here forever.
Okay, super interesting. I always love that there's, no matter who has this conversation, some of the same things bubble up, and that means that it's the authentic representation of our personality, right? If everyone's kind of coming up with the same terms. So I'll share with you the terms that came out of the brand work that we've done. Some of this work has been done before my time. There's been firms that have come in to do like website redesigns and other things that have done some of this foundational branding work and settled on some of these brand personality traits, and then it was just reaffirmed by the audit that we had the outside agency do. We did, and I'll get into the details more later, but there were focus groups and individual interviews, and there was a lot of input from across the organization, and we landed on these that are up on the screen as the most commonly attributed personality traits. You've probably seen practical, connected. What is the 3-1? It's trusted, practical, connected, trusted, or whatever. So that's kind of reflected here too. But I feel like these are pretty authentic. Is there anything missing from those lists that you think, from that list that you think should be called out? And we're talking about primary personality traits. So there's probably some secondary personality traits as well. Anything missing for you, or doesn't seem like it should be there?
Well, I wish there was a word that could capture just the.
I wish there was something that could capture that we're part of University of California and higher education. And I know it's research based. I see that, but it's not.
UC research based.
Okay.
Maybe we should change it to that.
Yeah.
I have another one. Like, this is kind of
Just, you know how people, they are described by their geography? We're Californian. Yeah.
Oh, that's nice. And then you start thinking about the California brand, right? Macy?
I think we're innovative. I don't think that we get credit for that, but we are. We're cutting edge on, pest control. IPM is cutting edge. They have that new, whatever the thing is that they're running up right now, the grapevine or whatever it's called, that's all about agricultural innovation. And I don't think we're really recognized for that, and I don't think that we have put that out to the public very well, I guess, but that we're very innovative.
Yeah, it's an interesting, because in some ways we're huge and bureaucratic and complicated, but then as a group of individuals, there's a ton of innovation going on, but sometimes it can be hard to associate that with the ANR brand because it's this big machine, right? Yep, excellent. Anything else on brand personality? Thanks for taking the extra step every time to help us capture this workshop.
I guess my thinking is like these are all very positive brand personality traits. And I think we hope to be that, and maybe the innovative piece is like something that's aspirational. But as you said, I think there's some negative personality traits as well that we're combating as part of this discussion too. Like you said, bureaucratic and cumbersome, too big, things like that.
Yeah.
So I think that's important to recognize as part of this process too.
Yeah, and that speaks to a point that Ethan made earlier. When we think of Nike, he thinks of sweatshops. We all have negative personality traits, including UC ANR. But in terms of our brand foundation and how we want to put ourselves out there in the marketplace, we're going to just forget about we're not going to ever emphasize the negative traits, right? So we're going to dive a little bit further into this with some work on brand archetypes. Is anyone familiar with what brand archetypes are? Or they came from, originally they were called Carl Jung. Yeah, they're schematics of all the different types of people in the world, right? According to Carl Jung. And some, I don't know who, but some brand guru decided to spin it for, in terms of the branding universe. So, because there's this parity between how you perceive a brand and how you perceive people. So we're going to do another quick group activity around archetypes. These are all the brand personality archetypes, and I'll bring them to you as well. And so I just want you to take a few minutes at your tables and talk about these. I'm not giving you all the nitty-gritty. I'm just giving you the 2 key adjectives for that archetype, because it would take all day if we read every profile of every archetype. But just with that little bit of information, if you could discuss together and decide where you think ANR is, which archetype, or maybe more than one, but which archetype do you think is the best fit for the UC ANR brand? So I'm going to do the big reveal now of what the previous brand work, where they landed on what our archetype is. And that's really small. There's a bigger slide coming, but, and it doesn't, all of the contributions that you shared are totally valid and they're true for our personality, but we have to land somewhere on what are the primary archetypes, right? And so the consulting firm and the audit participants landed on the sage as the primary archetype and the citizen as the secondary. And I think we could roll up some of what the other contributions that you made. They're kind of part of, like, the citizen is, cares a lot about the community, for example, right, and wants to give back. And so there are some, this is not like you were wrong to include these other suggestions, because these are just the primary ones. And so this is a little bit easier to see. This is just kind of diving in. It's more of the details that you didn't have. You only had the primary adjectives. And the purpose of these, if we're to implement them, is it just kind of helps ground us in our messaging. There's more work that I need to do to kind of distill what they found in the audit and think about how we might want to roll them out. But it's just one more tool in our branding toolkit to understand the nature of our brand and to be considerate of when we're crafting messaging or thinking about our initiatives and our strategic planning. Obviously, the most important thing to the sage is wisdom, but there's also independence and fulfillment. And then at their worst, I like to see the at best and at worst. It always cracks me up. But at worst, they can be pedantic and self-absorbed and cold. So the core desire, discovery of truth, and seeking information, that's very much in our DNA, right? And then the citizen, it's about belonging and being connected to others and not being seen as elitist, being seen as empathetic and authentic. Also very true for our brand. Is anything surprising there? I mean, you all came up with at least one of these on your sheet, so I feel like it's authentic. And do we want to consider adding another secondary one? We would have to come to consensus on what that is from all of your.
Would be explore as the most popular.
Yeah. So something to consider, but we don't want to necessarily make it more complicated. I don't know. So the last thing we're going to cover before lunch is just a quick FYI. I'm not sure everybody's aware of the communications toolkit and all the resources that are there related to branding, because some of what I covered this morning is captured there as well, and it could be helpful to look back at it. The architecture is there. There's FAQs. And I'm always open to suggestions for other things to add to FAQs if something that you want to know about isn't reflected there. There's a bunch of stuff about our core messaging. There's some sample elevator pitches. There are, of course, all the logos and templates and all that stuff. I'm sure most people know about those, but I just want to make sure you know about the breadth of the communications toolkit related to branding. There is also going to be eventually a link to some brand training because of today, because you guys participated. And that's it. Now it's time for lunch.